So I want to ask an important question. Do you think the future of YouTube is going to be behind a paywall? I think it's an interesting question that I want to talk about. Let's get into my thoughts. Hello, my name is Diamond, aka Lady Leo, and welcome back to my YouTube channel if you are a returning viewer, or welcome if you are a brand new viewer. So we've had a couple YouTubers, at least from the ones that I watch, that have announced that they're going to be making their own streaming services. So recently we had the Try Guys. They did two announcements. They did one that Eugene is leaving, which I'll talk about that here, but the main one is that they are going to be expanding the Try Guys, but they're also going to be moving to a streaming service. Now, before I kind of get into talking about their announcement, I want to also talk about the first one that I heard about, which was the Channel Watcher. So if you're not familiar, the Channel Watcher is composed of like three creators. I think Shane, Ryan, and Justin. Yeah, I'm sort of familiar with them because I remember them from BuzzFeed. You know, a lot of creators start out on BuzzFeed and then they branch out to their own channel. And so maybe like a month ago, I think it was like April 30th, they dropped a video essentially saying that they were going to be leaving YouTube, that they were going to be creating their own streaming service. Let's just say the video did not go over well. Now, when this originally came out, because I don't watch the Channel Watcher, I didn't hear about their announcement from their channel. I heard about it from other creators. Like, I think the first video that I watched was like August the Duck, and then I just started to do my own research. I had actually written out a script and actually filmed it, but I figured it was like way past the time that they had done this, so I'm just like, it's too late. I waited too long. So I was gonna just like wash it off. And then the Try Guys announcing that they were gonna do their own streaming service, I was like, oh, I come back for it. So thanks, Try Guys, allowed me to make this video and still have it be relevant. But it did not go over when they made their announcement because of a couple different reasons. So people had a problem with the price. You know, they were saying that $5.99 a person is affordable for everything. It's very subjective. It depends on, like, even in the US, it depends on where you are, but even more so internationally when you start converting currency. They also announced that they were going to be removing all of their content from YouTube. The plan was to do that by the end of this month. So by May the 31st, they were going to remove everything from YouTube. So all of their content would be exclusively behind a paywall. In the video, because I did watch their video where they were going to leave YouTube and the video that I'm going to talk about in a second, but they didn't mention what would happen with their Patreon. They do have a Patreon, so they didn't mention if Patreon subscribers get a discount. Do they get access to the streaming service for free? So they didn't mention that at all. So needless to say, the way that they announced it did not go over well. And because I had planned to make a video, and like I said, I did actually write out a script and film it, I was like doing some of my own research. So I looked at how many subscribers they had on their YouTube channel. When I first looked at it, they had 2.84 million subscribers, and they had maybe like 13,780 something Patreon members. Now for their Patreon, you can be a member of the Patreon for free. And then I think they had like 4,400 people that pay like for the different tiers that they have, because they had 4. And I checked it last night to write out the script for this, and they've gone down to like, I think like 12,400 Patreon members, but like 3,900 Patreon paying members. So they've definitely had a lot of people leave Patreon, and that's when I started tracking it, so it could be even more. But I also saw that their subscribers on YouTube has gone down from 2.84 to 2.83. So they've lost 100,000. Could have been more, because again, I don't know what it was before I started tracking them. But that's just been the fallout overall. The initial feedback from their YouTube video that they were leaving YouTube was definitely not received well. So much so that they recorded a video and they dropped it like a week later, essentially kind of walking back everything that they were saying. They were going to still have the streaming service, but they were going to keep their content on YouTube. And it's hard to say if their channel can recover. They're in the top 1 to 5% of YouTube, I think, because they have almost 3 million subscribers. And from the research that I did, their videos get a decent amount of views. They have dropped one video since those two videos that I just mentioned, but that's like a channel trailer. Sorry, it's a trailer for like, I don't know, some sort of series that they do. So I don't really think that would get as many views as like an actual content video. So there's no way to know if this is going to have a deep impact on their channel, like for the foreseeable future. But needless to say, they were the first channel that I heard about creating your own streaming service. I feel like my first response once I learned about this, and I before I had started doing my own research, is, wow, this comes off as very greedy and like super dismissive about the audience that you built on YouTube, because there's no option for you to keep it on YouTube or have a lower tier in terms of the price, and you're doing this by May the 31st. So my initial thought was, this is coming off really greedy. As I did more research, I think, to a certain extent, I do think this still comes off as being greedy. I don't think there's anything wrong with like wanting to make more money inherently. And I feel like when you are a high functioning content creator, you have a lot of subscribers, you already have like a higher production value, you have a team, it can be very difficult to break through the ceiling of, I want to make more money. And how do you make more money? So there's not a lot of ways to do that if you're already at like the glass at the top of the ceiling, you know what I mean? So like inherently, I don't think that like wanting to make your own streaming service is a bad thing. And I have looked at the streaming service that Watcher had. It looks really good to me. So a lot of money and time went into that. I think the problem for me is that there's already so many things that we have with streaming, so many things that we pay for individually. To have content creators start creating streaming services, to value yourself on a level like Netflix or like Hulu is a completely different level. And it's one thing if you want to offer that as an option and maybe just like hold off and don't post some things to YouTube, post some things really late, but to completely not post to YouTube anymore and to remove all of your content from YouTube, to me, first of all, it's such a crazy risk, because I would venture to reason that they don't really have a lot of research to know if this is going to work, right? Like, you don't know how many people you're going to need to be subscribed. You can certainly forecast, but you can't predict that to a T. So there'd be a minimal amount of people that you need to be subscribed to your streamer all the time just to make, what you used to make from ads and from sponsorships. And that's just, to make what you were making before. That's not to make more money. Yeah, so for me, I'm not a very big risk taker. So the only reason that I would be going through all this effort and spending all this money to create the streaming service and to maintain it, because it's not free, is because I think I can make more money this way. And again, inherently, I don't think there's anything wrong with making more money, but it's how you go about it, especially with something like YouTube, where you are really dependent on your audience for them to watch you, for them to return to watch you. So, it only takes a few times for you to like put a bad taste in people's mouths, and then they don't fuck with you anymore. You know what I mean? So I think Try Guys have a really great juxtaposition, because they also announced that they were going to be launching their own streaming service. The price was slightly lower. I think theirs, outside of like the discount if you sign up immediately, I think it was like $3.99, so maybe like $1 or $2 less a month. And the most important thing is that they did not say that they were going to get rid of their content on YouTube. In fact, they are still going to upload to YouTube, albeit it would not be like going on YouTube first. So it would just be like after fact, which I think is fine. And not only that, I think that's really smart for another reason, because you want to give yourself a couple months to really get some data under your belt, right? So like once you launch the streaming service, then you'll be able to understand how many people are willing to pay for it, how much money do you make from it, because maybe it's not as much as you thought. Like if you're not able to get people to constantly subscribe, you may not be making as much money to support not only your salaries and the salaries of the people that work for you, but for the different projects that you want to take on. So you have to take that into account. And then leaving your content on YouTube, it allows you to collect the residuals while you work out the kinks. So to me, that's the best hybrid. And maybe later on down the line, I could see the Try Guys maybe deciding to take their content off of, well, maybe not take their content off of YouTube, but maybe stop uploading to YouTube if the streamer is really successful. But I definitely wouldn't do that right away. You want to give yourself a chance to really get some numbers under your belt, because you need to understand how much money do you make from the streamer. And you're also going down from two sources of revenue, the ad revenue and the sponsorships, down to just having a subscriber in terms of like money. So yeah, to me, that's the best thing. So I think this kind of brings me back to the point, like, is the future of YouTube behind a paywall? I think yes and no. I don't think that every creator is going to be able to create a streaming service, because it costs money to create and to maintain, I assume, unless you're somebody who's sort of like graphically design inclined and you can make your own website. You would have to pay somebody else to do this. So Try Guys and Watcher, albeit not at the same level, but I think they're both in the top 1 to 5% of YouTube. And I can definitely see if this is successful for the Try Guys, and maybe Watcher by proxy if they can recover. I don't know. I could definitely see some bigger creators also moving to a streaming service. It would definitely be a good way to get away. It's a good way to get around all of the yellow tape that is YouTube. I'm a very small channel, not monetized yet, so like I don't have to deal with these things, but I understand how YouTube can be censoring, and I understand having to censor your content would not be an enjoyable experience. I mean, I do filter out my F-bombs, but that's just like a very small example. So I could understand that. And if you're a creator on a much larger level, you know, and you're running a full-blown business and you want to make the best choice for yourself business-wise. So I can definitely see creators moving towards creating their own streaming service. I cannot say like offhand if I would really be interested in participating in something like that. I do like the Try Guys, but I don't watch anybody's content consistently. I go in and out of phases based on how I'm feeling, so I haven't watched the Try Guys in a while. Again, it's nothing against them, it's just my own naturalness in terms of like, I don't watch anybody every single video they drop. That's just me. So I cannot say in the foreseeable future it would be for me to subscribe to a streaming service to support one creator, but I can definitely see larger creators moving to something like this because they're tired of dealing with YouTube. You know, they want to be able to have more creative control, not have to make things to appease the algorithm, which is always changing. So I do see a lot of benefits for bigger creators, but I also see a lot of risk. I mean, asking people for memberships or for Patreons, presumably if you're a really large creator, you're probably offering add-ons, because that's asking people to pay for something, to give them something additionally, you know what I mean? It's on top of what they get for free. So I think it's an interesting thing, and it would be interesting to see the numbers. For all we know, like, the Try Guys could drop this and, you know, maybe it's just not as much money as they thought, so they're going to continue uploading on YouTube. I mean, I think the hybrid model that they have set up is the best way. It's the best way to test the streaming service, and it's a good way to still get the residuals off of YouTube as well. And then you can always switch to uploading on YouTube as well if it's not like, you know what I mean? Like if it's not on and popping in the streaming service. So to me, that's the best way to test the system, because I don't think there's any way to like, I wouldn't drop the streaming service and be like, hey, it's free for the next 3 months. Lots of people will sign up for things for free. That doesn't really give you any data. But if you're doing a discounted rate for like a month, then you can give yourself a couple months to get some data under your belt to kind of see, is this in the best interest for your business? Very few YouTubers are on this level to be able to do something like this. So obviously, I don't think this would be commonplace for most YouTubers. But you know, you could also see some things for some people who are like not quite in the millionaires club, maybe doing things, combining with other creators and creating their own streaming services. So I think it could go off in a couple different directions. It would be interesting if certain creators completely paywalled their content. I don't know how that would go over. I'm sure they know what not to do from Watcher's announcement, and I'm sure Watcher has learned a pretty expensive lesson I mean, and again, it's no way to tell how this will affect their actual content because they haven't released a main channel video since then. If I were them, I'd still wait for the heat to die down before I released a video because people are still mad. I know because I went in and I read the comments and people are still kind of heated about it. And I get it. It's the perception of how they announced that they were leaving. So there's nothing wrong with wanting to make more money, but the way that it came off, and I'm not even somebody who watches their content, but it really came off as like, listen, we want to make more money. This is the best way to make more money. We're also taking our content that we worked on. You cannot watch it here for free. You will need to pay for it. That's kind of the vibe that it gives off. And that's a very off-putting kind of thing. It really forces people to kind of make the decision on like whether or not you are valuable enough to watch in terms of paying, right? As opposed to watching you for free and like wanting to support you with Patreon or whatever. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can recover from that. I'm sure they can. You know, YouTubers who are canceled usually bounce back. So I don't think it will hurt them too much. But again, I don't know. I'm only seeing the numbers from the outside and they're still, I don't know. So I guess only time will tell, but I definitely think the Try Guys had a much warmer approach. I'd be interested to know if they had planned to do that from the beginning, or maybe like they saw a watcher and they're just like, listen, we need to first off wait a little bit, and second off, we need to like change our approach. But something tells me like they had this in mind from the beginning. But again, I can't know that. Oops, I hit the mic. Hopefully that was not on. But anyway, I can't really know that. But the Try Guys just come off as a lot warmer because it's not like, hey, we're making a streaming service and this is the only way you can watch our content. It's really like, hey, we're creating this new thing. We're going in a different direction because we want to be uncensored. We want to make different types of shows. And we just can't do that under the banner of YouTube. But we're not going to just be like, fuck all to all of the people who have subscribed to us and who have been watching us for a decade. We are still going to keep our content on YouTube. You can still watch it here for free. And we're still going to upload to YouTube. It's just not going to be like immediately. It's not going to be right away. So you're not going to get as many uploads. And to me, that sends a very different message. It's a very different approach. And I think people are a lot more receptive to it. And that's really what matters when it comes to being a YouTuber, is like how you are perceived and how your audience views you. So guess time will tell. You know, if Sophia decides that she's going to paywall her content, I feel like the only creator I would really have to decide like is Sophia. Sophia doesn't really launch as many videos, at least not main channel videos, as she used to. But I'm okay with that because her videos are usually really heavily researched. So like, you know, I don't need a video every week if like the one video I get from you a month is like really detailed and like a 30-40 minute video. So I can't really see Sophia doing that, but I don't know her personally, so I do not know. It's an interesting thing to have YouTubers really looking at alternatives to keep their business going, right? To keep themselves, I don't know where I was going with that. You could see kind of the issue happening with streaming services now, which is like Amazon didn't have ads for a long time, but they had to get ads probably to pay for how much money they spent on the non-Lord of the Rings series. When I heard how much money they spent on that, I was just like, okay. I mean, that is an exorbitant amount of money for like one season of a television show. But yeah, I imagine that studios and companies like Netflix and Hulu, they're always raising prices because it costs money to be able to make these things. And with companies making a lot more things that are directly for streaming services, somebody's got to pay for that. So I'm just saying, like, even if the Try Guys or Watcher, their streaming service is successful, I could see later on down the line them adding an ad tier or them adding different tiers in terms of like prices, because it's just the nature of the beast as you go on. And the funny thing about like the ads is like when I watched the videos from Watcher, you know, they mentioned a couple times that one of the reasons they wanted to create their own streaming service was to get around ads, which I found kind of baffling because ads are, you know, advertisements are very commonplace. And like I said, a lot of streaming services do have ad tiers. So it would be really funny, well, not funny, but it would be really interesting if their streaming service was successful, but then, you know, they had to add on an ad tier, would defeat the whole point of the reason why they said they were going over there. I think it's important to be realistic, right? And if you're going to move to a streaming service, that comes with its own set of problems. So whether or not you make more money, I don't know if you would be able to make more money instantly, because people would have to be constantly subscribed to you. You don't make money off residuals. I think it's a lot more risky in the beginning, but it could be a lot more lucrative at the tail end. It just really depends on a lot of different variables. So yeah, I find it intriguing that two content creators, one of which I'm more familiar with, like I'm familiar with the Try Guys. I do actually watch them. I just don't watch them all the time. I've never watched the channel Watcher, but I do know them, and I've seen their content before. So I just found it really interesting that, like, within a month, you know, you have two content creators that are both announcing they're making their own streaming service. So I do think that is the start of more people leaning towards that. People who are in the upper echelon of YouTube anyway. So speaking of which, we also had a little note from Eugene. I watched that video too, and I did get quite teared up. I really like Eugene. I think of all the Try Guys, he's the one that I gravitate towards the most, because I see facets in him that are similar to myself. So all I will say, he'll never see this because he doesn't know me. But anyway, yeah, I wish Eugene the best, and it was just really nice, that video he did. He didn't have to sit down and say he was leaving, but he has so much respect for us as his audience that he's, you know, really wanting to just take the time to kind of explain his whole thought process and where he's been going and what he wants to do, and that he hasn't forgotten about us. He's just, you know, it's time to move on, and there's nothing wrong with that. So those are my thoughts. I'm really interested to see what you guys think in the comments. What do you think about whether or not this might become more common with some of the bigger creators that you might follow that I might not? Let me know in the comments below. I would be super interested to get into you guys' thoughts. Well, that's my time. I thank you so much for watching. Catch me on my socials. Also, Holo Taco just dropped a new collection, the Rock Candy collection, which I am so excited for. So you should definitely keep an eye out for that. Whenever I get it, I will swatch it. I did some Bridgerton inspired nails, so I'm going to have a short up of that whenever I get a chance to edit it. So keep an eye out for that too. And then I've got some ideas in the pipe hole for the next few videos. Okay, that's my time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.